The Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution lasted from 1791 to 1804 and was a revolution initiated by the black slaves that led to the abolishment of slavery and the independence of Haiti. Prior to the Haitian Revolution, Haiti was known as Saint Dominique and was an extremely profitable slave colony to France, which was at the time in economic turmoil and was amidst the beginning of the French Revolution.
France owned the western half of the island Hispaniola, Saint Dominique, while the Spanish owned the east half of the island, Santo Domingo. At the time, there was approximately 500,000 black slaves, 40,000 white slave owners, and approximately 28,000 were of mixed race. This meant that white slave owners were greatly outnumbered by the number of black slaves at the time. Black slaves worked day and night non-stop and lived under horrendous living conditions, a reason why the revolution started.
In August 1791, a Haitian priest known by the name Dutty Bookman performed a voodoo ceremony that initiated the Haitian Revolution. It was an all-out slave uprising. Although the wealthy had all the weapons, the sheer number of black slaves on the island was enough to counter their force. People were slaughtered and plantations were being burned. The French sent a man named Sonthonax with 6,000 to 7,000 troops to settle the rebellion. Sonthonax also brought with him a message from France that would upset the whites of the island. In April 1792, Sonthonax delivered the message that free people of color now had full citizenship. This act antagonized the whites on the island, for they were fearful that this would cause economic competition. Because of this, the French counter-rebellion force lost the support of the whites on the island. Much of the dissatisfied whites sided with France's opponent, Great Britain, who owned the island of Jamaica nearby.
In February 1794, in order to suppress the conflict, Sonthonax took the radical step of declaring black slaves free, despite greatly limiting their rights. This was later ratified by the French National Convention. At about the same time, Toussaint Louverture, a self-educated former slave, led the first slave abolition movement. He was a disciplined man who decided to make reforms about slavery, without trying to get revenge on the French for all the mistreatment. Later on, in 1801, Toussaint Louverture declared himself governor for life.
Back in France, Napoleon was not happy with the actions of Louverture, and so sent his brother-in-law, Charles Leclerc, along with 40,000 troops to take back Saint Dominique. Leclerc was able to convince some of the right-hand men of Louverture, such as Jean-Jacques Dessalines, to side with France by convincing them that France is not bad at all. Charles Leclerc later set up a meeting to negotiate with Louverture, trying to come up with a way to assimilate his people with Napoleon's French authority. During the meeting, however, Louverture was captured, deported to France, and died in jail there.
Napoleon now had the support of Toussaint Louverture's former right-hand men who thought Napoleon had good intentions. However, Napoleon's aim was to bring back slavery. So in 1802, Napoleon signed a law to reinstate slavery. Jean-Jacques Dessalines found Napoleon's intentions, and being more brutal than Toussaint, he and his comrades took up arms and fought with Napoleon's army. During this time, when Dessalines and Leclerc were in the midst of a conflict, the yellow fever struck the island of Haiti. The fever killed Leclerc and killed much of the army on both sides, which led to a temporary halt in the conflict.
Then in 1803, Rochambeau, an even more brutal French representative, replaced Leclerc. Rochambeau buried former slaves alive in pits of insects and boiled living people in molasses. With the realization that the colony was still at war with Britain, Rochambeau needed reinforcement from France. However, Napoleon did not support him. Instead, Napoleon was focusing on helping France because of the war that broke out at the time.
Rochambeau was taken down in 1804 because of the lack of support from the people. Jean-Jacques Dessalines then declared Saint Dominique's independence and named it the Land of Mountains, Haiti. France, however, did not recognize the independence and prohibited Haiti to trade with other countries. In order to have France acknowledge its newly gained independence, Haiti agreed to 90 million francs of debt to France, which was not settled until 1947.